Welcome back to Hannity. Protests erupted overnight in Missouri after the Justice Department released its civil rights reports related to Ferguson. Now, the department admitted that there was no evidence to bring charges against Officer Darren Wilson and that there was no proof that Michael Brown had his hands up to surrender to police. Now, keep in mind, back in the fall, the Reverend Al Sharpton repeatedly was fanning the flames of racial tension in Missouri. You may remember all of this.
If you want answers, throw your arms up, because that's the sign Michael was using. In order to establish peace, you must have fair justice for everyone.
All right, so where's Sharpton now? Now, last night, his National Action Network released a simple statement saying that they're deeply disappointed in the Department of Justice and their decision. So if he's all about justice, like he says he is, where is his apology? Joining us now from the Black Sphere, author of Race Pimping, Kevin Jackson, and Democratic strategist Basil Smikle is back with us, Basil Smikle Jr. All right, let me go to all of this. People were here that lost their entire life savings, their businesses. I'll put up on the video. Remember the market being lit on fire?
Sure.
Remember the convenience store footage? Remember all of those things that were happening? Look at that video. That all happened. The tensions were literally exacerbated by the president, by Eric Holder, by Al Sharpton. And then the Justice Department says that according to accounts that Michael Brown put his hands up, that was inaccurate and inconsistent with the physical and forensic evidence. Every time they said hands up, don't shoot, that was a lie and a myth. What do we do now for those business owners, those people whose lives were ruined?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry about those business owners. Clearly, those images were quite horrible. But asking Sharpton and Holder for an apology, that's just not going to happen because... No, it shouldn't happen because it's not just about this particular incident. You saw all of that violence erupt because there was a pattern,
they were
which
making
is what the Department of Justice found. There's a pattern of racial discrimination.
Basil, they created in the minds of people in Ferguson and elsewhere that there was an expectation that there was going to be an indictment, but yet they didn't factor in something called, something called evidence, eyewitness testimony, that in fact he struggled for the gun. We saw the video of him robbing the store, intimidating a clerk, charging at a police officer.
There is a natural expectation for communities to want an indictment when they've suffered under this kind of racial discrimination for decades.
That's absolute nonsense.
For decades. Kevin? But the reality is that they're still going to get justice because the Justice Department said that there was racial discrimination in the police department.
Yeah, and it was a total farce. And if Ferguson had a black mayor, black Democrat, we wouldn't be talking about this, Sean. What Eric Holder did is essentially a racially motivated witch hunt against a jurisdiction that, as I said, if they had a black mayor, Democrat mayor, they wouldn't even be talking about this. Everything that they're talking about that's happening right now in Ferguson is being done double, quite frankly, by at least 9 other jurisdictions who are being sued in the state of Missouri by our Attorney General because they are doing what Ferguson is claimed to be doing, except worse. And let me give you an example. Ferguson charges about 15%, gets about 15% of its revenue from fines and fees. There are 9 jurisdictions in the state that have exceeded the state limit of 30%, and in some cases up to 50%. And in these 9 cases, they are headed by black mayors or black city council people, and the majority, the overwhelming majority of the citizens are black. So if Eric Holder were truly looking at this situation from that standpoint, he'd be going after any one of those black jurisdictions.
But see, going to that very point, he is looking at it from this vantage point, because what he pointed out in the report is that even though there's a 60% of Ferguson is African American, it is not reflected in the police department, and it is not reflected in the number of arrests. 93% of arrests.
Let me stay focused on hands up, don't shoot, which became a mantra of so many. Let's go back to the robbery that took place before the shooting, before the confrontation. If you remember in this video, here it is. There's Michael Brown and Dorian Johnson. Dorian Johnson was never arrested here. Remember, he handed off whatever he had taken to Dorian Johnson. Let's go to the stepfather of Michael Brown when he said, "Burn this bee down." Remember this? All right, and then we have the video of all of the looting that went on. So here's my question to you, Basil, and we can show the video of that. Dorian Johnson wasn't arrested. He's the one that said, oh, he had his hands up and he was surrendering. That was a lie. He was never arrested for his participation. The stepfather that said, burn this bee down, he wasn't arrested. And all those people that were looting that we've been showing, none of them were arrested. And here's my question, should they be arrested now?
If you were looting, you should be arrested. But the
stepfather shouldn't be arrested?
No, listen,
for inciting a riot?
He said on camera that he shouldn't have made those comments. Even the President of the United States denounced his comments. Those should not have been made. But the fact of the matter is, it does not take away from what happened in that moment when Officer Wilson confronted.
Right. There's a good lesson here. Don't rob a store. Don't intimidate a clerk. Don't fight a cop for his gun. Listen to a cop when he says get off the street, and don't charge a police officer.
The lesson here is if you're going to run a city with a police department, run it so that it is not.
All right, Kevin, should these people that I'm talking about be arrested? Should they be arrested?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If you're going to go after the people, if you're going to go after Darren Wilson and you exonerate him and you do what you're supposed to do, you should be looking for everybody who led to the lies that have destroyed his life up to this point. But it's worse than that, Sean. What Eric Holder is essentially doing is he's now wanting to take all of this stuff that was created on a lie, and he wants to blame it on the police department where nobody was complaining. In the 9 jurisdictions I was talking about, black people were complaining to the Attorney General. Nobody contacted Eric Holder and said, hey, we're being prosecuted by Ferguson or persecuted.
All right, we got to run. Guys, thank you very much. I think Holder, Obama, Sharpton, they should be held responsible for their incendiary rhetoric that I think helped cause the situation in Ferguson. Don't hold your breath. All right, thank you for being with us.